YouTube. We're going to go through PDD Holdings, ticker symbol PDD. So we are going to take a quick look through the financials and see how the performance has been historically on PDD. This is a foreign company, so we won't be looking at the overall 10Q, but we will also be looking at the chart pattern and see what, if this is a good buying opportunity on PDD or not, and see. Also, we'll take a quick peek at the calculators to figure out what this thing is worth, what a fair market value is, and a potential buy range on PDD as well. Also, full disclosure, I do own PDD. I own it at $108.50 per share. So, nonetheless, let's dig in. So, let's take a peek. So, we got year to date, we are down about 7%. Over the course of 1 year, though, up about 124%. PDD reported their fiscal 23 year earnings March 20th, beat on top and bottom lines. And with their expectations, their guidance they gave out, we can see analysts really only revised their expectations slightly, 2 up, 1 down. So expectations must have came relatively close with analyst expectations, or in line with analyst expectations. So PDD originated from agriculture. So it was that's where I think it was 2015. They opened up some sort of agriculture. I think it was a not for profit agricultural business. They since then have acquired Temu, and this is an online e-commerce business. And this is basically what we are investing into as investors when we buy the stock. So over to our valuation spreadsheet, taking a look at the financials to see how this has performed. So revenue, gross profit, and net income trends here, all three trending higher. We can see 23 and trailing 12 months are flat. That is because they just finished their fiscal 23 year. So trailing 12 months and year of 23 are the same. So that's why we're seeing that. Net income on its own page here, we can see trending upward and doing it at a very rapid rate. Very good. Very nice to see. And gross margins sitting at 60.5% in the last quarter, trailing 12 months, 63%. Not real sure why they're trending lower. Might be have something to do with some inflationary factors. Otherwise, maybe if those start to go away, maybe we could start seeing margins tick back up. But even with gross margins trending lower, we are still seeing net margins, though, hit new all-time highs at 26.2% in the last quarter. Return on invested capital from this business sitting at 24.83%. Very good. Our PE ratio currently sitting at 23.91. Historically, in line. Obviously a little bit all over the place here, but in the last few years that's right in line with how it has performed. So cash, short-term debt, we do have more cash than overall debt. Actually, we have more cash and short-term debt, and we also do have more cash than total debt. So very strong balance sheet. Net income to free cash flow, unfortunately, we can see, just going top over the free cash flow chart here, we can see it's at $93.5 billion. That's not true. This is the one, the cash flows here are supposed to be in USD. This one is not in USD. So if you take the currency rate, which we have a currency calculator over here, and we have CNY, which is the currency they report in, 7.2 divided by 93.5, or 93.5 divided by 77.22. So we're looking at about a $13 billion free cash flow, which is double last year. Not the best it's ever done, but still very solid cash flows on this business. So $13 billion in free cash flow, and yeah, it's just it's solid. That's very good money. And we can see share count dilution. Starting still getting slightly diluted. Would really like to see them issue a share buyback going forward here. With how much cash flows they are producing, I really would like to see some sort of share buyback program coming into play, especially once we get over to the calculator. We can start to see that this thing is probably very undervalued right now. So that would be something, as an investor, I'd be very happy to see going forward, and hopefully sometime this year potentially. Over to the comps, we have 3 other companies to compare to. We have Amazon, Alibaba, and JD. So we'll come down here to our charts to compare all 3 of them. We're just going to jump over here to the growth rate. We can see PDD has some significant and substantial growth in comparison to the competition here. And we come down here to our margins, and PDD just blows all three of these companies out of the water when it comes to margins. They have PDD just has their margins figured out and we can see they've done better job in the past historically on their margins. So actually, except for their profit margin, this is the best they've ever done on profit margins, but still very good margins in comparison. Free cash flow, $13 billion. So we come back up to revenues. We can see PDD has the lowest amount of revenues in comparison to the other companies here. And even with the lowest amount of revenues, they are still doing better free cash flows than better than JD and almost as good as Alibaba. So it gives you a pretty good understanding of how well this business is ran. And obviously you can see it in the margins. Return on invested capital, 25%. Very good. PE ratio trading at 24 times multiple, very good as well. I mean, that's that for what this how the company is performing, and we can see our growth rate up here. I think this is you can kind of do quick math and think like this thing might be undervalued, right? Just by looking at just this chart here, looking at the growth rate, coming down here looking at the PE, and then also looking at how the margins are. I mean, it just kind of gives you an idea like this is a very well ran business. So now over to the calculator. We have on the pre-launch valuation, gives them a fair value of $210 per share. Our multiples comparison between the three companies we just compared to. There's probably a couple other companies we could throw on there as well, but we'll just stick with these three. $157.08 per share. Price to book, 5-year average, about 10. Currently sitting at 7.73. PEG ratio, we can see currently PEG is sitting at a 0.69. Forward-looking PEG is 0.35. Very cheap based on a PEG ratio. Grams valuation, $215.30 per share. Company does not offer a dividend, so we do not have a dividend discount model calculation there. Onto our discounted cash flow valuation. Analysts have a growth rate on free cash flow 44%. I took that down a little bit to 30%. 30% still phenomenal growth on free cash flows. With that, though, if they can perform that, we're looking at a DCF price per share of $192.46. Then we come down here to Rule 72. We have three sources of EPS growth rate, and really all I did was try to get an average growth rate of 20% on the EPS. And if they can perform that, that'll give us an EPS double of 2.87. And if I was to do a 2.87, we'd be looking at about a 40 for future EPS. I took that down even more, and I went to a double of just a 2 to a 23 for forward EPS, future EPS here. And with that EPS, we're looking at a fair value of $237.31 per share. So even with me really knocking it back significantly, and sometimes on this specific calculator, you really kind of got to play with that a little bit because it can get out of control if you don't kind of use a little bit of like cautiousness with this one. You always kind of want to make it, just a little bit not as great as what expectations are. And that'll give you a much better fair value price tag on this particular calculator. Overall, between all of our calculators here, we can see here's all of the valuations we got. We average all these together. Gives us $202.43 per share. Our 30% margin of safety, $141.70. Analysts have a price target of $160 per share. Now, that doesn't mean that PDD is going to go up to $200 per share in a week. It might never see $200 per share. It might only see $150 per share and then it sells off or just trades sideways for a couple years. It just depends on what the market is willing to pay for this company. And really, we can see that in the price action on the stock chart. And we can see we are in a very clear uptrend on PDD right here. And this blue line is kind of like it's sort of there. It's not really a solid trend line to go off of. I mean, it touches the most points right here. It's not a very accurate trend line. We do see down here, though, this green line is much more accurate. This yellow line definitely acts as resistance and now is currently a support range. And we rallied from $62 per share all the way up to $150 per share, pulled back to about $110 per share, didn't even touch support. That kind of gives you an indication that people are willing to step up and pay more for this before it actually reaches, a support range here. I guess you could say there is support. I don't know. Again, it just depends on where you draw these lines. But either way, it held support. People are willing to pay for this stock. We are in a very clear uptrend. and we're sitting still below 30% margin of safety based on our valuations, and our basically all-time high in this company sitting at about $210 per share is what the fair market value is that we just got on this business. So we have plenty of room to run. We have at least $60 to go potentially. I mean, based on our fair market value, what the market's going to do with it, well, nobody knows. But based on how it is currently trading, we are in a very clear uptrend. And since the most recent pullback, we have popped off that low, off those higher lows rapidly, like 3 days. Actually, this is on a weekly chart here, so it might be about 3 weeks completely recovered what we just lost. So that gives you a pretty solid indication of how strong this is currently trading. But nonetheless, we can see trading just slightly below our 30% margin safety. We have room back up to at least $200 per share, if not potentially an all-time high on PDD Holdings. And yeah, this one for me is pretty exciting. I'll probably add a little bit more to my position in the future. But that is it for PDD Holdings. If you found value in this video, drop a like, subscribe, comment, back later with another stock analysis video.